Welcome back to Crop Talk. My name is Karston, and my name is Karston Donovan, and today's topic, we're going to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act again. If you've been watching and following along, we covered this topic at the beginning of July, so you may be asking yourself, why are we talking about it again? And the reason being is because that bill was signed on July 4th, and there are actuarial contract change dates of 6/30 for some crops, and wheat being one of those crops. So essentially, the changes that were in that bill wouldn't have went into effect for the 26 crop year for wheat. So what FCIC did is they met last week and they came out with this bulletin on Wednesday afternoon with some new updated information regarding the 2026 crop year. So I just wanted to cover that for everybody. So as we see here from some screenshots from the bulletin, the action being that RMA will incorporate policy revisions at the next applicable contract change date for all crops. That wouldn't be until for instance, winter wheat for the 2027 crop year. But the next sentence being for those crops that the contract change date has passed, so for wheat, and the sales closing date is on or after July 1st, 2025, RMA is issuing this amendment to basically remedy that issue, which would have been a huge issue and caused a lot of headaches. So because of the fact that the sales closing date for wheat is September 30th, these changes will be able to go into effect. So I just wanted to cover that. There are some kind of differences from that first video that I want to highlight. So as we get into it, the main points, real quick before we dive into them, is the beginning farmer rancher benefits are going from 5 years to 10 years, and there are additional subsidies in those beginning years. It's not super relevant in this general area, but the whole farm revenue protection has some added coverage now. One of the big changes from this amendment is that SCO, ECO, and MCO are all seeing subsidy increases. This is definitely going to impact people, so we'll dive deeper into it here. But just on main points, be on the lookout for SCO, ECO, and MCO for this sales closing deadline. And then also unit structures saw some subsidy increases as well, that being optional, basic, and enterprise units. So as we take a look at the bulletin on the BFR benefit, as it states here, and you can try and read through, but basically what it is saying is that the benefits are going from 5 years to 10 years, and that we are going to see additional subsidy benefits on those first few years. So as you can see on the right side of the slide, the subsidy schedule is that on year one, beginning farmer ranchers are going to get 15%, same in year two, and in year three, they're going to get 13% subsidy, year four being 11%, and then from year 5 to 10, they'll get that 10% subsidy that we're used to. What it used to be is just the 10% subsidy for those first 5 years, and then after 5 years, you no longer see that benefit. So also in the second paragraph of the bulletin that you want to look out for is that any individual whose BFR eligibility status has changed due to this legislation may submit a new or amended BFR application on or before November 30th of 25. So what that means is basically if you were a BFR, maybe you've been farming for 6, 7, 8 years, and now because of it going from 5 to 10 years, you qualify, you're going to need to submit a new or amended BFR application prior to that November 30th deadline in order to see that extra subsidy on your policy, which again, that 10% really adds up. So definitely recommend people to get with your agent, make sure you are getting those applications in sooner than later. Don't wait till the November 30th. In my opinion, I would try and get those off prior to the sales closing deadline or sales closing date of September 30th. So that's one of the big changes. As we look at the next change of whole farm revenue protection, like I said, not super popular around here, but still want to cover it. They're increasing the maximum insurable coverage level from 85 to 90%. The biggest change, in my opinion, for people in this area is going to be the one that was probably the most up in the air was the SCO. If you remember back when we did that initial video, they were just changing the subsidy rate for SCO to go from 65 to 80%. Well, because of the fact that like we already talked about in terms of the discrepancy of when it was signed and when the actual actuarial contract change date is, from the meeting, basically what's going to happen for the 26 crop year is that SCO is going to stay at that 86% coverage level. So it's going to take you from your underlying policy, whatever that coverage level is, up to 86%, but it'll have a subsidy of 80%. And then as it states here, it will also increase, will be applied to the programs that are similar to SCO, such as ECO and MCO. So basically, for farmers, that subsidy is increasing. It's going to make it much more affordable than in years past for SCO and ECO. So as you can see in that second paragraph, the note, RMA will update the SCO policy for the 27 crop year to increase the maximum coverage level from 86 to 90%. But for 2026, it's staying at 86%, but you get that extra subsidy for ECO. So in farming, we really only take it 1 year at a time, and we're going to do the same in crop insurance. So that being said, for the 26 crop year, both of those programs are going to be at that 80% subsidy rate, which, if you can remember, ECO prior to the 25 crop year going up in subsidy, before that it used to be 44% subsidy if you were in revenue protection. So basically, from going from 44% subsidy to now 80% subsidy, that government is paying much more of the premium, making it much more affordable for farmers. And then on top of it, that one other change is that, as you can see in the bottom paragraph, insureds can now purchase SCO regardless of their election at the FSA office. So even if you elect ARC or PLC, it doesn't matter. You can still be eligible for SCO, which is a change because obviously in years past, you weren't eligible to be in SCO and ARC at the same time. So now they're taking that out of the out of place. So even more reason to be in SCO and ECO. Another change is that those unit structures are seeing increased subsidies as well. Basic and optional for most percentages are seeing a 5% increase in subsidy, and then at that 80 and 85% amount, they're seeing a 3% subsidy increase. Enterprise is seeing a 3% increase. It does max out at 80, so you can see 70% already had an 80% subsidy rate, but now 75%, because it was 77 before, is now at an 80% subsidy rate, and then you can see 80 and 85%. So in my opinion, I think it's definitely worthwhile with these extra subsidies for people to maybe look at increasing their coverage or just seeing what works for them, maybe going to optional instead of enterprise, or just figure out what works for your farm. And there's definitely some changes to look at and at least quote out and see what works for you. Some just additional information that it doesn't have to do with the bill, but I just wanted to throw on this video, just being relevant information. Right now, the harvest price is currently tracking for most crops, I guess at least wheat and barley, and that tracks from the beginning of August to the end of August. So we're coming up on towards the end of it, and then it'll be released at the beginning of September. But that winter wheat price for harvest price is currently tracking at about $5.10, which is about a 15% decrease. Spring wheat is at about $5.73, which is about a 13.5% decrease. Durum is $6.76, which is also a 13.5% decrease. And when I'm talking decrease, that's from the projected price that was set at the beginning of the policy period. And then barley is down to $3.62, which is a 19% decrease. And when we're talking about that decrease, basically what to think about here is, even if you're cutting over your guarantee, it's possible for you to still be at a loss because of that loss in revenue, assuming you're in a revenue protection policy. So just be in contact with your agent, make sure they know what what your production is looking like, to see if you would be at a loss. Those revenue only losses are probably the ones that get missed the most, because people don't even realize that they are at a loss. And then also currently the winter wheat for the 2026 crop year is currently tracking for the projected price. That tracks from the middle of August to the middle of September. And currently it is tracking for conventional winter wheat is $5.82, which last year was at $6. So it's down a little bit from last year. And the organic is tracking at $11.28. So anyways, that's all we have for you today. There's probably going to be a lot of questions from the bill, and there's a lot of really, really good, useful things in that bill and the amendment for farmers. So I think this is a huge sales closing date coming ahead. It's definitely worthwhile for farmers to talk with insurance agents, ask the questions, take a look at your policy, take a look at some quotes, and see what works for you, because these changes are extremely farmer friendly and extremely beneficial to see all these subsidy increases. I mean, for just to put things in perspective, if you're a BFR, for the first year, you're getting that 15% subsidy. Well, if SDO and ECO are also seeing an 80% subsidy, that means you are paying 5% of the premium for FCO and ECO. So, I mean, talk about it with your agent, truly understand how it works, and see if it works for you. So that's all we got for you today. Thanks for joining us, and hope you have a great weekend.